I want to talk about like everyday problems that we have, everyday circumstances, and how do we deal with those. Lots of times, most of the time, all of us, I think, would be guilty of it. I think when we run into situations, we run into circumstances, the first thing we do is we start thinking, and we start trying to fix it in our own minds, in our own, just however we do it. And that's probably the worst thing that we can do, because when we're running around in our own minds and we're running around fleshly, we're going to make mistakes. And they're just going to pile on and on and on. The next thing you know, we're going to have twice the problems that we had before. So I wrote a few things down just to kind of go over what I'm saying now. So I'll just read some of them here. Well, and one of the things too is we need to learn to walk like Eve never ate the apple. Free. Like man never fell.
Yeah.
And then we can walk in power. When we're going through our difficulties, when we're going through our trials, we're going through our problems, we need to learn not to think on it, not to get wrapped up in it, not to focus on it, which is exactly what we do. And we all know that when we get into circumstances and when we get into our problems, that's just the devil's way of throwing you off course, stopping you from what God wants you to do. And it works every time. In most cases, it works every time. And lots of times we have to, I already said we not be a victim of our circumstance. And the things that we think about, the things that roll through our minds when we're rolling over and over and over, what we're thinking is what we end up doing.
Yeah.
So, and that's a lot got to do with, like on our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, our feelings, they're all felt and judged from the lens of a fallen world ruled by the devil. If you think about it. And we need to stop rolling around in our minds and stop making, our problems worse, because when we do, I don't know if you've thought about it, but when we do that, we're agreeing with the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you want to turn, I've got it wrote down here, but if you want to turn to John 16:33, and I'll give you a minute here, just kind of give me a nod or something to let me know you're there. Come on in. The water's fine, come on in.
Praise the Lord.
You there?
Yep.
Okay. John 16:33. I have told you, this is Jesus before he was ascending to heaven. This is what he's telling the disciples, us. He says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace and confidence. In the world you will have, notice he says you will have, tribulations and trials and distress and frustration. However, he says, but be of good cheer, take courage and be confident, be certain, for I have overcome this world, and I have deprived it of power to harm you, and have conquered it for you. So, hold on, I've lost my place. So, if he's already conquered it for us, and he's already did the work for us, then what's that tell us? Well, I mean, have any of you ever heard the statement, I know my dad used to say it all the time, oh, it's all in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out it is. It turns out that our worst battle is in our mind.
Yes.
When we're having problems, what's the first thing you do? Stinking thinking. You just keep rolling around in your head. Okay? Well, in that, what Jesus did was he gave us a tool belt to live in this world. He broke everything down, so if we just rely on him, we just trust in him, we just have faith in him, then really we wouldn't have these issues. We take it back out of Jesus' hands when we start worrying about it. We take it out of Jesus' hands. When somebody goes up to get healed, and they're healed and they're feeling good, and have any of you ever heard the next day they're not healed?
Yeah.
Lots of times, right?
Yeah.
Stinking thinking. They get to thinking about it. Familiar spirits kind of give them a little nudge in the same pain, and next thing you know, they're not healed.
Right.
Stinking thinking. It's one of the devil's most valuable weapons toward us, is to cause us to think. And truthfully, like I said, we're all thinking in the wrong lenses. We're looking through it in the wrong ways. If we would just look at it in a manner, in a perspective that we believe in God. And if we can believe in God, we wouldn't have these issues.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have these problems. I know in Mark he says, come to me, my yoke is easy. Well, that's what he's meaning. If you give your problems and your circumstances, if you give them to Jesus, then you would be rested, wouldn't you? You wouldn't have these problems. Any of us wouldn't. We could walk this life pretty easy. But we don't. We don't. And what I have found out here is, if you remember, on our regular reasoning, it seems like sometimes it seems right to us, which is our worst problem, is when we come up against something and you begin to think about it, and you'll call a couple of friends or you'll talk to a couple of people, and you guys will begin reasoning and you all come up with a plan, and it seems like we all do that over and over and over, and that works for a minute, and then the next thing you know, there you are in your misery again. And you're just like, when's this ever going to go away? God, help me. But he has helped you. He deprived the world of its power towards you. We're just not applying it. So we've got to apply it. So in a lot of our problems, a lot of our circumstances, a lot of things just happen to us, and getting sick. Most of our problem is, let me read a couple things here. We got to stay out of our minds. We can't do any reasoning. We can't try to fix our own problems. I'm just kind of reiterating the facts. And a lot of our answers is to our questions is, one of the biggest thing is to change your perspective. If you change your perspective, you change the lens that you're looking through, you'll change the person. And if you change the person, well, then you have a different mindset. And if you've renewed the mind, you're going to be thinking like Jesus. And if you're thinking like Jesus, you're not going to have those troubles. Now, one of the biggest things that I have found out, and hopefully you guys will test this, but one of the best things that I found out is if you're going through whatever Christ it is, it can be terrible, but real problems. Well, if you think of it this way, try it on for size. See what you guys think. If you're running into a situation and it's causing you all kinds of trouble, and I don't know, just all kinds of trouble with family or friends or spouse, brothers and sisters, workmates, whatever. When you run into these problems, the best thing to do is just stop for a second and say, wait a minute, this don't matter. None of these things we're going through even matters. Because if we have trust in Jesus, he wouldn't be bothered with sin. Best thing we can do when we're running, if we're having troubles with, or actually any of our troubles, it doesn't matter. Think about it. If you don't dwell on your circumstances, if we're not all caught up in what's going on wrong, and we're not caught up, basically we get wrapped up in it, and then we start living it, and then we're really in trouble. But if we just learn to shift our circumstances, learn to look at things in a different lens, look at things in a different view, then we just say to ourselves, this don't matter. What matters is, do I trust God? And most of the time, we think we trust God. And when we're going along and everything's happy, oh, we're trusting God, all right, because that's easy. And that's just truth, not being just truth. We all like to think we're trusting Jesus, and we all try to trust Jesus, but man, when you're hurting, when you're really in a situation and it's real to you, it may not be real to anybody else, but it's real to you. Right? The first thing we do, we start trying to fix it. And that is the worst thing we can do. We have to get into, and myself too, I'm trying to practice it as I'm speaking. Yeah, you have to try to practice it, because practicing makes perfect. But one of the best things is whatever situation you're in, it doesn't matter. We have to trust Jesus. And a lot of times, here's what I've noticed that we try to do. We'd like to trust Jesus, but a lot of times we don't want to wait on that. Truth. It's true. I'm guilty. Terribly guilty. But a lot of times we don't want to wait on the answer. And then another big thing is we're afraid of what that answer just might be. We're afraid of what that answer just might cost us. So if we're living for Jesus and we've died already anyway, then what do we have to lose? Well, what we had to lose is all that stinking thinking. We can get rid of that, and just all the frustrations that come with everyday life. If we really put our trust and our thoughts and our cares on Jesus, we would be living a good life. We would be living happy. Everybody would have the joy unspeakable, full of glory. We would have it. Very small preaching tonight. Didn't have a whole lot, but one of the things I just want us to get is not to stay wrapped up in our circumstances, because I am certainly guilty of that. I have rolled things over, and I'm a fixer. I like to fix things. So I can't fix spiritual things, everybody. It's not from us. So if anybody needs any prayer tonight, anybody has any issues or something that they want to have prayer, I'm gonna set us out and pray for us. And if you want prayer, we'll put some chairs up and you can sit down and we'll pray for you. So I'm just gonna close on that note, and we'll all stand up and I'll pray. And then if you want prayer, just come on up here.